Hey there. So today I wanted to take some time and give a few hints and provide a little bit of help in troubleshooting and debugging algorithms. Chances are that if you're writing algorithms, you're probably running into issues at times where you can't figure out what's wrong with your algorithm. In this example, I want to show it with an algorithm for a mean hip that I created, and I want to show how to figure out what the problem is. So let's get started. Let's take a look at the code. So if we take a look at this code, if you're not familiar with the min heap, what a min heap is, don't worry too much about that. I'll provide a link to the creator of the Cracking the Code interview. The simple explanation of a min heap is that you add items to the min heap. Basically, it's like a queue. You add an item, and the smallest item is what's going to come out next. So let's say, for example, that I added 10, 20, 30, and then 1. It doesn't matter what order I added them in, as long as I get the lowest value whenever I ask for the next one. So for example, if I ask for next, it'll be 1. And if I added anything else lower, maybe 10 is the next one, the next lowest value comes out. So they come out in order by assignment of value. This code here has some functions that basically allow it to perform like it's supposed to. I wrote all the code, but now I'm having some issues. So the issue that I'm having is that when I actually run the code, notice that I add 10, 23, 2, and 10. They should come out in order. So what I did, I wrote a loop after I create the heap. I create the heap here, and I add a bunch of items, right? And so now I want to be able to see that my heap comes out in order. So what I did, I created a previous value of -1. So anytime that the previous value is actually greater than the next value, then we have a problem. So the next value must be greater than the previous value. If not, that means they're out of sequence, they're not in order, and we get this console log. When I wrote it, I wrote everything correctly, but I'm getting an error. So let's go ahead and run it and see. So when I go to the console and I run my code, notice that it's out of order. And it's like, well, I can't really test. Now, you can write unit tests and figure out that, yes, it's coming out of order, but maybe you want to take a closer look. And one option is if you're in IDE, you can actually walk the code and see the values. That can take some time. Sometimes it's just better to output log some output to the console and then just observe it. So what can we do about this? We know that it's out of order because 10 is coming out before 5 and then 5 before 1. So there's obviously something wrong, but I don't know what it is. So one way to do it is, first of all, to create an array, a function that prints out an array. So if we do that, we can just create a function that prints an array. So let's create that function at the top. And that will help us troubleshoot what the array looks like at every point. So if I do that, I can have things like, let's see that when we add an item, we want to see if it's added incorrectly, because the problem may be in the adding or in the removing, so we don't necessarily know. Notice also that in the function for the array, I added a message. And the reason I want that message is because I want to know where it's printing from. So I want to say, for example, I'm printing from Heapify, or I'm printing from this area. And so that's a good idea to add additional information whenever you're printing out your array. And here I'm just collecting the values in the array, and then I'm going to, I store them in the string S, and then I print them out to the console. So let's go ahead and print the array when we add an item. And so when we add an item and we Heapify, we can say print array after push before Heapify. It should be Heapify. And then we can also print the array after Heapify. So now that we have this, we know what our array looks like, and let's go ahead and run it. So when we run it, oh, we didn't actually print the array. Why is that? So let's take a look. We have a lot of undefines. So let's take a look at that. And that may be because we are not actually printing the array. So let's go ahead and see. So we only pass the message, but not the array. So let's go ahead and pass the array and pass the array here. And let's see if we have the right parameters. Yes. Okay, so let's go ahead and try it again. Looks like I have an error where I'm saying this and I'm not actually typing it correctly. It looks like I have a typo. So let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, so everything should be good to go now. Let's go ahead and give it a try. And notice that after I push before heapify, so far so good. After heapify 10, we've only added one item. After push 23, before heapify 1023, after heapify, it's because they're in the right order. The smallest item should always be to the left, and the smallest item, well, let's not even worry about the exact order of heap if you're not familiar with being heap, but just keep in mind that the smallest item in the heap should always be at the top. That's one of the rules, not all of the rules, but one of the rules is that the smallest item should always be at item 0 in the array. But notice how when we push the array, push 2 to it, and we call heapify, it doesn't move it there. So there's something wrong with our heapify. So let's go take a look at our code. So after heapify, it doesn't do it, and this is a heapify up. Basically, we always add the item to the end of the array, and then we bubble it up. So when we bubble the item up, we're checking to see if that item that we're talking about, we first set it to the last item, and if that item has a parent, and that parent of that item is greater than the item in this particular index, then it should move it up. But it's not working. So that leads me to believe that the parent, there's something wrong with the parent. This value is coming up incorrectly. So what I need to do in this case is put some kind of log that informs me of what is this. So, or maybe the problem could be that it doesn't have a parent. So we need to log those two things out. One way that you might think is that you might just say console.log, but then when it's time to clean up your array, you're going to have to do a lot of cleaning. A better way to do it, and you can do it in other languages, there's just different ways of doing it. I'll create my own debug log function, and I'll say something like heapify up with index, and I'll say the index plus index, and then plus, and value this array, and then I can say whatever the index is. Oh, oops, too much. Index, this index, not this index, but index, plus, and we'll say it equal to, and then we actually pass it this, not this index, but this array index. So this array index. So this is getting kind of long, as you can see. So let's go ahead and move it to the second line. Equal to this dot array, and then we have the index. And so that should log something, but I haven't created this debug log. So very simple to create a debug log. All we have to do is just create a function up here. And that should give us a function to debug log. Of course, I have to give it the name. And now we have a debug log. And with that, now we can run it and we can actually see the index, but maybe we want to add additional information. So right now, we're going to say that we're heapifying up with index and the index, and we're saying this index is equal to that. But what if we want to log also what the parent is? So let's say that we want to debug log has parent, right? So we know what that index is, and we'll say has parent, and then we just say index is, and then we'll just say this has parent, right? So we say has parent index, and it's going to give us a Boolean value if it has a parent. That's another thing that we want to know. The other thing that we may want to know is what about the value of the parent? Maybe that's something we want to know. I don't know yet. So let's just take a look at this and see what it does. So let's go ahead and run it in the console again. And I have unexpected token function. So where do I have function? Oh, yes, when we declare functions as arrow functions, we don't need the word function. So let's go ahead and run it again. And when we have heap5 with index 0, this array 0 is equal to 10. When we push, well, the one we're interested in is the one 10, 23, 2. We say with index this array 2 is equal to 2. And we probably need a space here. But it's true. So, okay, what's going on? We do have a parent. So maybe we need to get the parent value. So let's go ahead and get the parent value and see what's going on there. So we come back and we say we decided that we need to debug log again. And we go ahead and debug log. And we'll say that we can just say parent value or something. Or we can say this parent. And we'll have the index. And we'll say this dot parent index, and it should give us the index of the parent, right? So we say that it gives us the index of the parent is, and we are going to call this dot parent index, right? So we're going to say this dot parent index, and let's see, this dot parent, this dot parent, we want to say index here. We don't want to say this dot parent index. We just say index, and we say what the value is at that location, which is going to give us the parent. So let's take a look at what that results in. Let's move over to our console and run it. And when we heapify after we push 2, it tells us something interesting. It says that our parent is 0.5. Well, remember that when the whole purpose of getting parent is to actually get the index of the parent. So what would getting the parent, this array with 0.5 give us was probably going to give us an undefined or something like that. So we don't want that. So we found our issue. So now what we want to do is go back to our code. And since we found that there's an issue with that, when we get the parent, we want a whole number because these indexes with parent, these left child and right child and parent, not has parent, but parent, are supposed to give us integer values so that we can access the item in the array. Well, JavaScript by default will do floating point math and give us 0.5, so we don't want that. An easy way to do that is just to simply say math.floor using a JavaScript built-in function there, and we can probably fix this. So if we have that, now we go back to our console and we run it. Now notice that we didn't get that error anymore, but we have all this console logging going on. So we have the heapify. If we look at the heapify, and let's see, after we added 2, we actually got, after heapify, after the push, it was 10.23.2, but after heapify, now it's 2.23.2. Notice that we always get the smallest value in. So now when we add 1 here, notice that 1 actually moves to the front like it's supposed to. But now we have another problem. Now we have a lot of logging. And we would have to clean up all this logging in our code. But remember when I said that we should use something else instead of console log? We don't have console log throughout our code. So what we can do here is simply comment console log. And if we, instead of using debug log, we use, instead of using console log for printing the array, we use debug log like this. And let me see if this will even work, because sometimes when you define things after, it may have issues. So let's go ahead and run it. Let's go and run it. And notice now that everything works like it's supposed to. It gave us everything in order, 1, 2, 5, and 10. Now, I didn't write the debug, console debug for our actual test because I do want to see that part of it. I want to see that work. That is not really debugging code. This is actual, I'm testing my my data structure, and I want to see that I have it correctly. That's really all I wanted to show you. A couple of things. One is, don't write console debug in your console log in your code, console.log. Instead, maybe write debug log at top and then just clear it out, and so it won't spit out all that debugging code. And also, when you have data structures where you can print the array, you can print it. Now, some data structures are trees and things like that. So in those cases, when you have trees, you may need to actually figure out a way to print the nodes. There's ways to print binary trees, binary search trees. Anything you have, you can print. And a lot of times it helps out to print it, because that way you see what's actually getting inserted, what's actually getting extracted. So hopefully this helps you. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. If you like this video, well, you can like it. But also, if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe. That really helps my channel, and I really appreciate all your support. Thank you.